All right, folks, how we doing out there? It's Mike Kett, and we're live 3 p.m. on Mind Body Bank Account. And I am super excited to bring on the show with me a gentleman who I had the pleasure of meeting. I'm going to say roughly 8 years ago now, and what a chance meeting with someone who would eventually, I'm going to say, change my life because I'm thinking about things in a new way. He's an exceptionally decorated martial artist, which I got a passion for the martial arts. He is what he calls a serial entrepreneur, which really resonates with my mindset. And he's just an all-around great guy. So the things that he is doing right now are absolutely incredible. I'm going to let him get a little more into that. But 15-time karate and kickboxing world champion, father of 3, turned a lawnmower and a dream into a business that spans multiple provinces across our country, multi-million-dollar business. He's the real deal. Let me introduce you to Mr. Ben Stewart. So Ben's out of the Ottawa area. Like I said, doing incredible things right now. And if I'm correct, just got finished shooting a few hours of video for your coaching program. Am I correct, Ben?
We're pretty busy working on a new project, Entrepreneur University. Hence the reason why I'm dressed up in my own house. But great to be on. Thanks for the invite. Pleasure to be here.
Ben, awesome to have you here. So I'd love it. For the people who don't know what you're all about, just back from Athens, double gold at the World. And I'm guessing that people would never guess that you're 40 plus. But kick the asses of the 18 to 35-year-olds as well as your own age category, which is absolutely incredible.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. Ben. I'm getting some people giving us feedback here saying there's echoes. I'm going to pop. Hear me, Ben?
I can still hear you, sir.
All right. Goes here, but we're going to get this. All right, Ben. Your story. How did you get stuck with this entrepreneurial spirit to have? Give me the Old Nose version. How you came from pushing a lawnmower to where you are now.
Okay, pretty simple. I grew up in Ottawa. And as a young child, I always had aspirations of being an entrepreneur. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I would watch Young and the Restless with my mom and my sister. And there was this guy, Victor Newman, who owned this huge company. He was the entrepreneur, and he was also a boxer. And he got me interested in running a company. And I was studying marketing and business at a very young age. And like I'm sure a lot of the viewers on this video, came up with the idea to start cutting lawns in the neighborhood. And it's funny, just right before this interview, I found this picture. And you can see here I am with a lawnmower. And that is 1999. And that was when I went after the Guinness Book of World Records for the most lawns cut in one day. I did it as a charity. Got me a lot of free publicity, got me a lot of business, and that's what comes down to guerrilla marketing and putting yourself out there. So my passion through high school and as a kid was martial arts. So I wanted to be a martial arts school owner. That was my dream, to be an entrepreneur and to run a karate school. But the interesting part was, at 16 years old, you can't own a karate school at 16 years old. So I said, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. Why don't I learn to be an entrepreneur as a lawn business and eventually have the ability to own a karate school if I can graduate to that level. So little did I know at the time that my lawn care business was going to turn into a national company across the country. the whole idea starting lawn care was to eventually afford and be able to own my own karate school, which I eventually did as well.
Incredible. And the gentleman who you train with. Yeah, can you not hear me, Ben?
No, a little bit. I would say put if you can hear me okay, definitely on your end.
The good thing is that the people are saying that they can hear you fine. And that's what really matters.
I think in Canada, we pay our bills in Canada and it gives better internet or something.
That's probably it.
That's probably it. Water in London or something. I don't know. Could be.
Hey, now since we met, I'm now down in Stony Creek.
Oh,
so
cool.
I've done a little moving around, but
it was
very interesting chance encounter that we had in London. So I'm just hearing people saying that I got a huge echo. So what I'm going to do, Ben? I'm going to
turn the question and then take the.
I'm going to turn this over to you. Give me the goods. We're going to talk sales and marketing. There's a lot of people on here who are entrepreneurs, business owners. The only way that we can make business work is by bringing it out to the world and getting customers.
You got it.
Share with us, Ben, some of the pearls of wisdom that you have. What are you teaching in the way of sales and marketing these days?
Well, it's I'm really glad you actually brought that up. I'm gonna flip this camera real quick to the computer here. I'm working on Entrepreneur University, and today the filming I was doing is actually related to prospecting. And prospecting, it's interesting, the stereotype behind prospecting is a lot of new individuals in business. Here, I'll flip mine so you can see.
Yeah,
but a lot of new individuals in business, they prospect when they're first starting out because they don't have a client base. And for some reason, something that works like prospecting. Can you see my computer okay? You can see it okay? So, okay, perfect. But it's interesting because for some direct sales representatives or businesses, they prospect when they're new and when they're brand new, and they start to get some traction. They start to get customers in the pipeline. And as soon as they start getting customers, they feel like they've graduated to just paid marketing, or they've graduated to being able to just rely on business they already have. But no matter how good your product is, no matter how good your service is, over time, your clients are either going to move away, they're either going to die, or they're going to leave you. It's one of the three. So it's important to be prospecting. So I was just doing some courses on prospecting, creating your pipeline. And if you go down, you're going to see how many different ways that you can actually prospect in your business. Door to door, that's how we met, residential. Door to door, business to business. Outbound over the phone. Facebook Messenger, Facebook engagement, Facebook highlighting, Instagram messengers, LinkedIn, personal mail, voicemails, video text. There's flip it back. You can be creative in your industry and in your market to be reaching out in the community. And what's beautiful about prospecting now is that so many people, so many businesses, they seem to feel that because they're putting money into Google AdWords or pay-per-click, and they have lead pages, that they don't want to actually reach out unless that's someone who's put up their hand.
Right.
And I was able to build my business, the one that we met on. You told a story last night about your experience seeing, you said, I don't have a lot of money. I'm going to go roll it on myself. I'm going to steal my driveways myself. It was a pretty cool video. But you decided to do business with them because you saw all your neighbors doing it. And you said, well, hey, man, if I'm seeing everyone. So we call that a term called linking. And we realized that if I'm on your street doing business for your neighbor's the credibility. The work I'm doing with your neighbor, his name is credibility. And if I come to you, you might not even have been interested initially, but because I'm doing work with someone you know and you trust, and you're able to see the work, you're now open to the sale. And I really truly believe that this was the reason. My understanding of prospecting and my understanding of human psychology is what enabled me to build that system to duplicate and mass produce an idea. And that's really what it came down to. People say, well, how did you build this big company? Well, there's a lot that goes into it. But if you want to be successful in business, you need to learn how to communicate and you need to know how to organize people. And if you're able to create an opportunity for people, I mean, you were at that time in Primerica, so you understand recruiting and sales development and training of staff. Every business is the same way. And I think that the number one mistake entrepreneurs make is the fact that they believe because their product is good or because the function that they do is important, they don't think that prospecting, marketing, sales process, and sales mastery is something they need to focus on. But if you want to grow a company, you actually want to grow an organization with people who can actually implement that, you need to first take that serious. You need to first master your own sales process so that you can duplicate that to the people around you. That's how you grow a business.
Right. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, their product will just sell itself. And getting in the trend, staying in the trend, turning over the bushes. Am I saying that we just get out of that?
Well, we met 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, you were actually shocked when you asked my guy, how do I meet this guy? And I remember them calling me and saying, there's some guy in the neighborhood, he's trying to recruit us for Primerica, and now he wants to talk to you. And you were really shocked because I ran a large company and I just appeared. And one of the mistakes that business owners make, especially when they're growing a company, is they get away from what made them successful. And I know what makes me successful in my business, and that's my ability to train, to motivate, and mentor youth on making personal changes in their life, making a decision that they want to have work ethic, that they want to get out of their comfort zone, they want to knock on doors, they want to learn sales. So this is an issue with business owners. Although my collar is pink today, I am a blue collar owner. And 10 years ago, I was in a van motivating and mentoring my sales guy. 10 years later, cross-country company, but on February 5th, I'll be on a plane to British Columbia, and I'll be driving a van, working with rookies on their very first day for 90 days straight away from my family, 3 months on the road to make sure that my businesses and my locations start the right way and that I'm a top-down leader leading from the front as opposed to leading from some chair and some green lamp.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
And that's what makes people want it. Busting it for you. They see that you're attention. And correct me if I'm wrong, but as a business owner, when you get yourself back to ground level, usually employees are seeing from a first-hand perspective. If there are issues, you can tweak it from what you're experiencing yourself like in front of the desk, amp and chair.
You got it. And that's a problem that a lot of small businesses make, but it's actually seen, in my opinion, in my experience, more with like medium-sized businesses and large businesses. They started small. They had this great product. They had this great service. To touch on a previous question, they worked really hard, but a lot of times those businesses are character-based, and they thought it was about their product, but really it was about them. And the moment it starts to grow and they haven't duplicated themselves, they have a problem. So for myself, like you said, I want to be in the field. I want to actually be working directly with the technicians in the field, putting the sales training on, learning how the markets and the demographics are changing and the people and the clients are changing. And you can't do that from an office. You have to do that right from the ground, right in the field. And that's something that I have felt. And oh, by the way, I love what I do. So that helps. Like, I actually like driving the van. I like competing each day. If I've got 60 vans across the country and 600 guys out across the country, I want to be that number one van every single day. So as an owner, you have to be hungry. You actually have to love what you're doing, and you want to compete every single day. I get to go to a sport every time I do. Every single day I go to work, it's a sport. And if you can turn your job into a sport, you'll never go to a work a day in your life. And that's really what it comes down to with my business, and why 20 years later I still want to jump in a van and I'm anxious to get out there and start attacking those doors in those neighborhoods.
It keeps you
young.
Yeah. I'm looking at you. You look awesome.
People don't know. I
just woke up with flowers. I look like.
You look amazing. You look amazing. Never admit fatigue. Never admit defeat. Even if you feel it, never admit it. Just pretend that you're wonderful.
Awesome.
I love that.
So you signed my
book.
And said, call me
anytime.
Here we are.
I in a million years
that I'd be connecting
with you again.
But that power of getting in the trench, where it's gonna go. For all I know, someone watching this right now could be a next client of yours, partner, the next market that opens up, the next business collaboration. So we don't know who we're impacting and who's lacking. If you don't open our house, get it out there, knock on the doors.
Well, it's funny. I'm someone who likes to do what I say and say what I do. And I'm a firm believer in that closed mouths don't eat. I told you that last night.
Sure.
And I appreciate, as much as, one thing I've always done as an owner is I've tried to make myself accessible to my people. And whether that be clients, whether that be my staff, no matter how big I am, I want to be accessible. And that's why on social media, someone can type in Ben Stewart. It's not like a lot of these pages where they have someone working it for you, and you could reach out to me. And years ago, 10 years ago, or whatever it was, you wanted to talk to me. So I showed up at your house, and I don't even know if you had already started sealing or you were talking about it or whatever. But if I tell someone I'm going to do something, or if I tell someone, hey, reach out to me anytime, if I'm a man of my word, then I will be willing to reciprocate. And I also appreciate people who are willing to step out of their comfort zone, because maybe you were thinking to yourself, hey, I read this, my son's reading this book, I should reach out to this guy. But maybe something in your head said, oh, he probably doesn't even remember me or doesn't care or whatever, he'd never respond. But something in you told you, you know what, I'm just going to send the message anyways. And that's what winners do. That's what winners do. They step up to the plate, they open their mouth, they send the message, they send the call, they send the email, and that's where success lies. Success lies just past the obstacle, just past the no's and the rejection. That's where success is. And if we got more people just willing to step up to the plate and man up, things will start to happen for them.
I agree. 8 acres of diamonds.
8 acres of diamonds.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Good book. Right?
Incredible.
I got to touch on only because briefly before this.
Show me your
50
book that you showed me.
Because this is really because my audio
is not sounding great. How this links up to what I'm talking about on one of my videos.
Sure, yeah. So last night you were testing it out and letting people know about this show. And then I guess a few minutes later, you're on a live feed talking about making 52 weeks of improvement in your life. So it got me thinking, did he maybe get access to my book? Because a couple of years ago, some people might know this, some people don't. My martial arts kind of following knows that I retired from fighting 5 years ago. And my hip had been so bad for many, many years. And I finished my career off in 2013, won a couple world titles. I promised my wife, I'm 35, I'll stop now. I'll go get my MRI, and the doctor's going to tell me I need a hip replacement. I knew it for years. So I got the hip replacement done there 3 years ago. And while I was in bed recovering, I'm one of these guys, I want to be a producer. I want things to be happening. And the fact that I was stuck in bed for 3 weeks, 4 weeks before able to do anything, I said, you know what, I'm going to write a book. And I'm going to write a book because this will motivate me. And I the funny part about this book is I wrote most of it while on morphine. So I was on drugs. So you'll have to watch some of the content. But the idea was with my sales staff, let me just show you here. My sales staff is called 52 Quality Tips. And the idea behind it is my sales staff, they're so busy. I'm having a tougher time with the new generation, having them willing to sit down and actually spend time reading a book, like the book I gave you 10 years ago. So I thought to myself, I want to do something for my team. I want to do something for my staff, but I want to do it in bite size. So I thought to my target market, and I said, well, they all know about cell phones, and I design it like a cell phone. And I'm going to do 52 tips on success for 52 weeks of the year in 52 words or less. So each one of the pages, let's see what one of that is, that says,
we can see it.
Yeah, so there's,
I'll show you how we do one. I think I can show you how to take them
Flipped
around
so that we
so
can
that we can react.
But right
But
now,
right now
we're
we're backwards. But
good. So 52 success tips, and you had just been talking about, so I thought you had actually read the book. And so that's where right before we went on, I said, hey, but have you seen this book? So I guess we're getting some ESPN going on here.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah, I like it.
ESPN. So that's cool, and that's what I did, and I think it's really great what you're doing, and setting those goals. And I mean, for myself, people know about goals, they hear about goals all the time, but in the real trenches, this is my Ben Stewart book, and every single year, no matter what, every single year, I'm old school. I won't do this on my phone, but every single year, I will have 2016, my health and fitness goals. And I will go through my business goals, my health and fitness goals, and I will set those every year in December. And that will set me on a path and giving me a path to greatness and change and evolution in my life. And people who are not setting goals, they have a tough time because they're just kind of floating day to day and month to month through their lives. And the only thing they're getting is older.
Right.
So goals keep you young. They keep you accountable. You talked about accountability last night. This is a big part of my life. And I decided this summer I was getting in a little bit better shape. And I said, you know what? My hip's feeling good. I've been doing yoga. And I said, I'm going to go into the club and I'm going to see how I do with no training. I'm going to see how I do with these 20-somethings. Because wouldn't it be cool after 5 years to come back and fight again? And I went into the club. This was in June. And there were a couple 20-somethings. One had just won the world title the previous year. And I got in there, and I don't kick the way I used to. I can barely kick at all. But age is like a fine wine, right? So it gets better with time. And my experience, my footwork, my movement was really good. And I was doing well. And I said, wow, this is pretty cool. And I'm wondering if I can get myself in good enough shape, come back to my weight that I was back in my 20s, I could probably throw down again. And that was the process I took. And on October 17th, show that there. There you go. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the 18 to 34 WK World Championship. And then this is for the old guys, the 35 to 40. That's my age group. That's the 35 to 44. And interestingly enough, all the way through, the people who were following my journey, they were saying, like, you're going to fight the 18-year-olds? You're 40 years old. And I said, well, I actually think the 35 to 44 age group will be harder to win than the 18s. Because the world has changed a lot. And as parents, we need to acknowledge this. Kids are growing up on iPads and on tablets. Kids are not getting slapped anymore. Kids are not getting spanked anymore. Kids are not getting no's. Kids are not getting rejection. They're not failing in school. They're getting participation ribbons. So when you grow up in that environment, and I didn't mean to offend anyone with what I said. I'm not telling you I slapped my kids. I'm just saying that it was different when we were kids.
Absolutely.
This is what I'm saying. And losing is a great opportunity. Failure is a great opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
you know, and as parents, we have to do what we can for our children to give them that work ethic, because I'm finding it lacking. And I really felt that in sport karate, in my sport, that my generation was very strong. And even though the guys might be 35 or 40 years old, I believe that the fighters in my sport are stronger in their 30s than the new generation coming in. So I actually had myself convinced that the 18-year-old division was going to be easy. And I was so convinced, my belief was so strong, that if I got my conditioning right, that would be the easier path. And in the end, if you were to watch the videos on my Facebook, my 18-year-old fight was finals in the States. Whereas the 35-year-old was a very close fight, very tough fight. Broke my thumb's still dislocated. But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun to be in there. And no, I don't need to fight, and no, I don't need to be in tournaments. But I believe that goal setting and setting these goals and going after things in your life that are fun, whether they're needed or not, they get you up in the morning. They get you pushing. They keep you up late at night. They keep you producing. And this was a great way. This was a great way to make it happen.
Touching on what you spoke about a new generation of young folks. And it's hard to blame them with giving them this world that allows for
mediocrity.
And what I want to play unlimited life. You have no consequences for that. You know that you're going to come back like back in the old days, falling down, get hurt, break your knees, picking yourself back up, forging ahead was something that you needed to suffer and learn from it. Now don't feel that there's that mental toughness anymore.
It's definitely there. It's in every one of us. The problem is that, like anything else, you want to get big muscles, you got to lift weights, right? You want to have good health, you've got to eat right, you've got to do your conditioning. So if you want to be mentally tough, you have to be tested. The problem is that people aren't being tested. And it's up to us as parents with this generation going on to do what we can to prepare our children, because there still is the elite. There still is that 20% of the population that will actually receive 80% of the rewards and the abundance. The question is your child, and is your child going to be the one that makes those right choices? It's actually easier than ever to be a performer now. It's actually easier than ever because mediocrity is accepted. In fact, mediocrity is promoted. So if you can, as a parent or as a coach, if you can show entrepreneurs the way it used to be, if you can show your kids the way it used to be and how this is a better choice, and teach them that feeling of struggle, and teach them that feeling of hard work, and have them tie that to positive emotions. This is something I've done with my son. Like, I had a big goal. My son was really struggling with reading. He was really struggling with reading in grade 2. And this was a big fear of mine as a parent, because I understand how important education is. So a big goal for mine was to get my son's reading and comprehension way up. So we tried all through grade 2 to do this, and he's still behind. So I turned to my wife this past summer and I said, my son, our kid, he loves running, swimming, and biking. He loves this triathlon. Why don't we put our effort this summer, instead of making his summer a terrible experience and making him read and do tutoring and all this other stuff, why don't we give him the opportunity to be a great competitor and push him to the max in his triathlon, because he wants this. So he did 6 triathlons. The last 6 weeks of the summer, we were in Aurelia, we were in Petawawa. We drove all over the province every weekend, and he won his last 5 triathlons for place. And I literally watched a transformation in my son's confidence through sport, through struggle, through the effort and training, that he suddenly became a winner. And that's something he wasn't getting at school. And it's interesting because a lot of the families would say, like, man, like, you're going all over the province. I was like, would you not do anything you could for your children to progress? Right? And so that's what I did. And then amazingly, when school started back, I said, okay, triathlon season's done. We're going to continue our training, but now it's school season. And you saw what happened when you implemented your training to your triathlon. It's time to implement your school training to your schoolwork. And his fall progress report, he had marks in school like he's never had before. His reading has gone up a huge amount. And so there's a lot of work involved, and there's a lot more to go on this. But we just saw the biggest improvement in my son's school in 2 months, and it had nothing to do with school, but instead the work ethic that he's developed and attaching it to a victory and attaching that to success. So I think that's what's lacking with kids, and we really need to work on the youth of today.
Absolutely. That's great. I love it. And it touches on the same idea of going down great at, and don't beat yourself up about the not so great. Right?
Gary V.
To judge the fish by the fly.
Well, a good story would be looking at Henry Ford. Henry Ford had like a grade 2-3 education, and the Washington Post hated the fact that he was the richest man in America and he was absolutely killing it. And he said that he was the smartest man in America, and they got upset. They brought Congress in, and he said, "You ask me any question you have about my business, and I will show you I'm the smartest man in America." So they had these scientists and these engineers, and they asked him, "Well, what is the temperature the metal in your Ford Model T is going to melt?" And he said, "Okay, 1 second." And he picked up phone number 6. "Hey, what's the temperature the metal melts at?" "Oh, 2,000 degrees. "Oh, 2,000 degrees. Next question." And the thought process is simple. Henry Ford wasn't going to be a scientist. He wasn't going to be an engineer. He was a businessman. He was a visionary. And for me in business, if I'm good at something, yes, it's important to have understanding of different concepts. As an entrepreneur, you need to be strong in all parts of entrepreneur. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to learn programming to program my own website. It doesn't mean that I'm going to learn to be an account return. No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pay a specialist. And if I can be as good at my business to create enough revenue to justify that, we can grow, and you can focus on the things that you love and focus on the things that excite you rather than the things that you despise.
Absolutely. Awesome. What I'm hearing from you, I'm hearing a lot of Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich. Tell me your one time.
Great story for you. 2004. Are you ready for this?
Let's hear it.
2004. I'm running my lawn care business out of my basement. I did $250,000 in sales in 2004 out of my basement. Now, to a normal lawn care company, they would say, "Wow, that's pretty good." That year, I read all the Robert Kiyosaki books. I read this amazing book from Michael Gerber called The E-Myth about systematizing your business. And I read the entire Napoleon Hill Laws of Success, the whole Napoleon Hill. This was in 2004. I read over 100 books on success. The next 5 years, I took the company from $250,000 to $9 million in sales, 36 times itself based on the concepts of Napoleon Hill and Michael Gerber with the E-Myth strategy. So yes, I've read Napoleon Hill. I recommend it. People say, "Oh, that's stuff from the 1920s and 30s. It's the concepts and it's the psychology of success that determines success in any era, in any year. It's your willingness. Are you willing to go out and seek that information, and then more importantly, implement that information?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great. Great.
That's great.
So Ben,
Ben,
if I'm
Brent,
we said
we said
sales and marketing, which is the engine that drives as far as I can tell. Without putting your product out there, getting it to the mass, we really don't have it. So how if I'm Brent, let's say I do have a launch here. How do I get my name out there? We have a lot more apps on social media and whatnot. What do you tell brand new entrepreneurs? Step one, step three in your first year.
Okay, really great question. So I'll do it in two different directions. If you're just starting out in any business, I always recommend starting small. And if you can't physically yourself go out and sell your product or service, you're in the wrong business. So if you're a business to consumer, you need to be able to go out into a mall and sell it to someone. You need to go to a craft fair. You need to go door to door. If you can't physically explain your product, build value, create the interest, and close the deal, you're in the wrong business. Because if you can't sell it, how are you going to train someone else to sell it for you? Okay. So that's the first thing. So let's just say we've got that covered. We know how to sell it. We got a great product. Things are starting to roll. So here's the second part of the question. What I teach my coaching clients in business is something called the marketing Parthenon. And the marketing Parthenon, picture Greece, the Parthenon, you've got the pillars, okay, to the building. And these pillars are holding up your business. And each pillar is a different marketing weapon that you have in your marketing mix. So when you're creating a marketing plan for your business, you don't think about, oh, I'm going to be really good at door-to-door, or I'm going to be really good at online marketing, Google AdWords, or I'm going to be really good at Facebook, or I'm going to be really good at going into fairs, or I'm going to be really good at networking, or I'm going to be really good at referrals and creating. What you want to do instead is realize that successful businesses, it's all about points of contact. It's all about coming out of obscurity and into the public eye. So the more ways you can actually create to put your business in front of the community, in front of your prospects, not only the more ways they're going to see you, but that actually builds credibility. So you think about the psychology, like online, in the online space, there's so many businesses now marketing online. There's a million different ads. Just like when TV, when radio, newspaper, there's a million different real estate agents all in the newspaper. Well, who do you choose, right? But if you're that real estate agent, you might have the ad in the newspaper, but you're also at the networking event. You also have a Facebook page. You're also doing a lead generation through Google AdWords. You're also seen at the a local seminar doing a free talk. This is the idea behind a marketing Parthenon. And in a Parthenon, if one of your marketing methods were to stop getting the result, this is what's killing businesses and bricks and mortar businesses across the country, because once upon a time, they could put a flyer out, and that flyer would get calls and would get response. And once upon a time, they used to be able to use a display ad in the newspaper, and that used to be able to generate a response. But a lot of things that worked 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and 20 years ago, they don't work anymore in the same way. Right. So business owners and entrepreneurs have to be extremely flexible, and they have to be extremely creative. They need to get with the times. Most of the bricks and mortar businesses, the old school guys like us, if they haven't evolved, they're getting crushed right now by the new generation coming in. Right. They're getting crushed online. So if you don't have a social media presence, like if you don't have at least a Facebook page, a Facebook profile, if you're not on LinkedIn, if you don't have a YouTube channel, you might not need that for your business,
but these are the different ways you're putting yourself in front of the prospect. And the more ways you can show them, the more variety you can bring, the stronger your marketing plan, the stronger your opportunity to not just get new business, but also have the credibility when people do approach you, if that makes sense.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And along with that, becoming an author. I mean, that adds credibility. You become a published author. People look at someone and say, hey, this guy must be an expert in his area. He's written a book about how to, you know, eat healthy, eat clean, whatever it may be. Would you agree?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's a growing trend. And now with ghostwriters and with ebooks and with the information that's readily available, it's become much, much easier to become a published author. Like that book I gave you, you know, nowadays that book would have probably been an ebook first. And if there was traction, we could create a printed book. But that book itself, I wrote that in 2007. I didn't have a publisher. So I, out of pocket, ordered 7,000 copies of that book and paid for the production, paid for everything myself. And then I was actually having my door-to-door guys selling it. I was giving it away, like whatever. Whereas times have changed now, where if I had an idea, I could sit down with a ghostwriter for 8 hours and then he'll write a book for me and put my name on it. Like, so times have changed a lot, but the credibility for sure. If you're in an industry, having it's easier to get online with publicity now, right? We can do a live feed like this. And if the content is of quality, that's credibility right there, right? It's easier than ever to get your message out there, but it's harder than ever to have an impact. So because you're against 500,000 other live feeds going on right now, we have to ensure that our content is worthy of the following, right? And then, but the book, I write them more for fun and for the people that I work with. I don't really write my books for mainstream. I don't have any of them on Amazon. I don't have them available anywhere. They're actually for my personal network and my personal circle. So that's me. But if that means that someone like yourself said, hey, I'd like to speak with this guy because he's an author, my credibility should not be based on my book. It should be based on everything else I do. But if it's because of the book, then clearly it works.
Well, I'll tell you, when I sat down and started reading this book, immediately I said to myself, man, this guy's got this is what I soak in. So it immediately resonated with me. And that's what pushed me to want to speak directly to you. You know what I mean? So, but that's just one avenue. And it worked for me. So there's so many ways that we can, you know, touch someone's heart, whether it's through the book or through social media or I mean other ways that have us connect. It's all about that connection. So yeah, hey, I appreciate it. So
awesome.
I'll tell you, it was awesome watching your fights. And for anyone who thinks that that karate is just tip-tap, touchy, nobody gets hurt, I think maybe after this, feel free to look up Ben Stewart and take a look at some of his fights, and you'll see that people are getting knocked out. People are breaking thumbs. People are breaking. I'm sure
there's a few bumps and bruises for sure, and it's funny because people have asked me over the years, like, have you ever thought about MMA and different things like this? At my era, I would have been best suited, like based on my fighting style, and best suited for MMA. My original background was 5 years of jiu-jitsu before I ever even got into karate. I used to wrestle people on the national judo team. That was all before even starting karate. And but the karate, back that time, UFC was just launching. It was a fringe sport. Karate was bigger, right? And by the time UFC got a little momentum and I started talking to people about that opportunity, I had already had my groin tears and these other injuries that have accumulated. Plus, I had a business that was generating millions of dollars a year. So why switch into to $100,000 contract or I'm going to get my head bounced off the ground when I could just do a sport that I love and enjoy. But in saying that, in sport karate, I've had probably 800 or 900 fights in sport karate, and about 100 in kickboxing. And I've been hit way harder in karate than I ever have been in kickboxing.
Wow.
And they have way less protection in sport karate than they do in kickboxing. So kind of gives you an idea. And some people think it's tag, but until they get tagged by something.
Yeah,
so,
man.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. And I appreciate you checking those videos out because there's just not enough sport karate highlighted. But I will say right now, the Bellator, if you follow Bellator and UFC,
yep,
the Bellator kickboxing champion is Raymond Daniels, sport karate fighter. Right now in the Bellator MMA, 13-0 fighter Michael Venom Page, he's 13-0. He's going to be going for the title. He's a sport karate point fighter.
Really?
Yeah, full point fighter. I fought him many times. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in the MMA, Wonderboy, who fought Tyrone Woodley. He shouldn't have fought him. He was hurt at the time. But Wonderboy was a point fighter before getting into kickboxing. So a lot of people right now are starting to really recognize Joe Rogan now is a big fan of sport karate because he's realizing that we have this gift of movement and speed that you don't see in the rest of sport karate and this agility. Right. So a lot of my colleagues in sport karate are actually being used as coaches for GSP, for Tyrone Woodley. All the top guys right now are actually being coached and trained by karate guys. So it's pretty interesting how it's come full circle.
That is, man. I'll tell you, because back when I had my little stint in training martial arts, which I'm super passionate about, I got to tell you, karate was starting to have people were looking at karate as being passé. The streets, they're different nowadays. Karate's not going to work. But man, now that whole MMA sport has become so refined and so technical,
it's come back.
It's come back, and I could see in your fights. I'm sure because of the groin, not a huge kicker, but man, oh man, the precision and speed and that backhand of yours, man, oh man.
Got to do it, man.
People.
Got to do it. And if you go on YouTube or you go on my ben-stewart.com website, you can watch some fights from 10, 15 years ago when I had a leg. So you get to see me kicking people in the head. I went to this world championship and I decided that I'm not going to throw a kick. I'm going to win the world title without even picking my leg up because brains and hands and footwork can, a guy with great hands can beat a kicker any day. And when you have that mentality. So I actually really only threw in the finals against the American, a couple jump spin back kicks. Other than that, didn't really throw any kicks. But
prior to that, I didn't see many kicks prior to those couple back kicks. Yeah.
No, I did that. I did that just because my friends like to see me do it once in a while. But that was about it. The fight was already sewn up by then, so it was okay. I could throw them. Exactly.
Awesome. So, I could talk all day with you about martial arts. We could talk business, and I'm hoping, Ben, because I want to respect your time as well. I would love to make this, part 2 and part 3 in the future, because I think we got a whole lot more to talk about. And folks, if you're watching, if you're catching this live or you're catching the replay, the share button on your phone is the most powerful thing that you can use right now and I say that you can use because there are folks that who are starting their own businesses, who are planning to start their own businesses, who are, I don't even care whether it's just struggling to get through daily life. Some of the concepts that we've spoken on here are going to resonate with them and it's going to change their lives. And we don't even know it yet until you hit that share button and start that connection. So Ben, when we get off, please share it with your community, folks who are on here. If you're a martial artist, if you're a business owner, share, because we want to get this out there to the people.
Appreciate that. Yep.
Yeah, you've hit a lot of concepts that are just, pure dynamite. And I can see next time that I get with you, Ben, I'd love to dig deeper into mindset and that
For sure.
that whole idea of first the thought, then the thing, literally creating your own future based on your mindset and mixed with obviously passion, emotion, and good old hard work.
Well, I'll close on this because I do have my kids are actually going to be going to their triathlon training now, so I do need to get out of here. But I'll close with this, and this came from my instructor, Steve Nasty Anderson, greatest sport karate fighter of all time. He moved to Ottawa in the 90s, and I had read about him in the magazines. That's who I trained with under karate. And, yes, he taught me kicks and punches, but what he taught me more than anything else is the mind and the mindset. And he taught me a couple things. One of them came from the great late Grandmaster June Reed, and that was do a duty daily. And what that means is no matter what your goals are, no matter what your passions are, just do something today towards it. So maybe that's dropping down and doing 20 push-ups. You're going to have a busy day and you're not going to be able to work out. Drop down to 20 push-ups. Maybe you're not going to have time to do your self-education. Just read a couple pages of motivation, or go on Instagram and look at a couple motivational pages or something like this. So do a duty daily. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is something that I've used since I was 17 years old as a directing path and a lightning beam towards the things I want. And here's the thing, Mike, if we wanted to be, if we were going into a fighting tournament, if we were going into a sales meeting, if we were going into a big bid proposal, would we want to get lucky? Would we want to get lucky, meaning we get what we want?
Absolutely.
100%. So the question is, what is luck? And what my instructor taught me is he taught me the definition of luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And if the opportunity is the world championships, you can't have the opportunity unless you show up. And you can't show up unless you prepared. If the opportunity is growing your business, you get to decide, are you going to get up earlier? Are you going to stay up later? Are you going to educate? Are you going to learn about marketing? Are you going to learn about selling? You have every opportunity out there. Are you willing to prepare? And the people who prepare in life can take advantage of opportunities, and they'll be known as the guys who got lucky. So I didn't get lucky in anything in my life. I don't take anything for granted in anything in my life. I will continue to prepare because I want to continue to get lucky.
Here's to getting lucky.
All right, brother, let's get lucky.
I couldn't have ended it any better.
Awesome, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for having me on. For everyone else, if there's anyone on this that has any questions on the material and the content, you can find me on Facebook, Ben Stewart. Just send me a quick message, comment. I will actually return it. Or if you want to check me on Instagram, it's University4 Entrepreneurs. And you can check me out on,
hey, Ben,
Instagram.
Can you throw your link in the comments?
Sure, not a problem. We'll do.
Awesome.
All right, brother.
All right, listen, I appreciate you coming on. Ben, you take care, and all the best, and I'm sure we'll be chatting in the near future.
You too, Mike. Thanks. You appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You as well.